is a story of light.
This is a story of standing solid.
This is a story of family. Have you ever tried to build something, make something, do something big? There was a time in our country when church wasn't a dirty word, when talking about God wasn't taboo. A time where Christians were known as hard workers and servants, not hypocrites. We aim to reclaim that true gospel of grace. This isn't a story about a church or a pastor. This isn't a story about flashy lights or the perfect sermon. It's not about good deeds or donating money. This isn't a story about a building. This is a story about God. Years ago, a group of 30 young adults started the downtown church. It started quietly. And now, 5 years and 5 buildings later, literally hundreds and hundreds of people walk through our doors every week. Have you ever tried to build something and by some miracle it actually worked? This is that kind of story. This is our story.
About 7 years ago, a number of us were at Drake University and we were really involved with the campus ministry there. And over the course of our years there, God had really blessed the ministry there. I think we started off with about 40 students or so, and by the time we graduated, there were over 200 students that were actively involved. And most of us, we were going to Walnut Creek Community Church, the Windsor Heights campus at that time. And the vision of Walnut Creek Community Church is to plant campuses all throughout the city of Des Moines. And at that time, there was the Windsor Heights campus and the Johnston campus. And I remember Luke and Darren and Jess and Schreiner and Crummy and a lot of these other guys, we thought to ourselves, well, we're graduating, what should we do? Well, a lot of times people after college, they'll leave and they'll go find jobs different places around the country, which is great. But we said, let's stick together and let's try to do something great for God. And so we said, well, why don't we plant a church together? And part of the vision of the church, again, is to plant different campuses. And we said, well, let's plant one downtown. Now, none of us had ever done this before, and so it was really an adventure for us. It was great. It was a great opportunity for us to seek the Lord and to figure out what is this going to look like. What's the best way to go about this? And so after many months of planning and trying to get things together, we came to the place where we thought we were ready to do this. We had graduated. Most of us had graduated from college, and we had about 15 people at the time who were in it and said they really want to be a part of it. And so we started meeting regularly, still going to Windsor Heights, the Windsor Heights campus, and meeting with the pastors and planning and getting everything ready. And then I remember we ran into our first challenge, and the first challenge was a building. We didn't have a building that we were going to meet in. And so I spent a lot of time driving in the downtown area looking for different buildings, a place where we could meet. And I remember one night, Caleb Thompson and I were driving downtown, and we found this building that had huge windows, and it wasn't all that big. It used to be an old furniture store, and I thought, man, this is the building. And so I remember contacting the owner of the building and trying to figure out how much the place cost to rent. And the building was $4,000 a month to rent at the time, and when your budget is about $0 a month, that's a little bit too much money. And so I thought, oh man, Lord, this is a great place, this is a great building, but I don't think it's in the budget for us right now to actually meet at this space. And so I kept looking for different buildings until we found a man who owned a facility in the downtown area, and he used it for a lot of different things, but he said that we could have it every Saturday night for $50 a weekend, and I thought that's a lot better than $4,000 a month. And so we were really excited. We were really excited to meet in that spot. And so the months were moving on, and our little group of 15 or 16 people. It was growing, and to the point where there were around 30 people who were committed to helping to start the downtown church. And so in January, you could just feel the excitement. A number of us had gotten back from Faith Walkers, and we were praying together, meeting together, and we were just waiting until we could actually start the church. And then I remember on January 25th, which was my birthday of that year, I got some bad news. And the bad news is that the building that we were counting on to meet in, we could no longer meet there. And so at that point, I was really disappointed, and I thought, oh, Lord, this looks so bad. You know, I'm supposed to be leading these people, and I think people really trusted me at the time, and I felt like a really big failure. That's actually why I've lost my hair, is because of that time. I started to lose all my hair then. I'm just kidding about that. But anyways, and so I'm thinking, oh, no, we don't have a place to actually meet. What are we going to do? And so I remember just praying and seeking the Lord, and we kind of went back to the drawing board, looking at a lot of different properties. And I remember looking at a few that were within our price range and thinking, oh, Lord, we got to get these places. And one of them is a building that's right across the street from our current facility called Bear Mechanics. It's just this little building. And I remember seeing that place and thinking, oh, man, for 30 of us, it'd be great, and we could buy the property and potentially build an addition, and it's going to be the greatest place we could ever meet. And so I was really excited about it, but the pastors in the church, they weren't very excited about it either. And I thought they were buffoons. I thought they were just old people who didn't have a clue what was going on. But I think that God sovereignly set it up so we wouldn't get that building.
And they would call me every time they found a property, and I'd look it up, and I'd look up who the owner was, and I'd look up the phone number, and then they'd call, or I'd call, and we'd try to see if we could view it. It was crazy. We were just trying to walk by faith and trying to trust the Lord with that He really wanted us to do this, because He had grown our numbers. He had really shown us that there was a need and that He could use us in the city. And so we were just actively pursuing His way in giving us a building. And so it was kind of crazy, actually.
And I remember it kind of came down to the wire. We were going to start the church, and there were just a few days before we were scheduled to start our first service. And what ended up happening was there was an older gentleman that went to the Windsor Heights campus, and he knew someone in the East Village, a man named John Bergeson with Iowa State Bank. And so this gentleman said, hey, why don't you and Luke go meet with John Bergeson and just tell him what you're doing. And so Luke and I went down, and we met with John, and we told him what we want to do. We told him what God had put on our heart. And I remember he looked at us and he said, you want to meet in the East Village, right? And I said, yeah, we do want to meet in the East Village. And he says, well, I have a property that you could just use for free. And I said, oh, man, that would be great, thinking it's going to be just a little room and it wasn't going to be very nice. But he started to describe the property. And the property was the property I had really wanted in the first place, the property that cost $4,000 a month that was way outside of our budget. And I remember as he was describing that, I thought, oh, Lord, I cannot believe how you have come through for us. And so we started to meet at that facility, and it was a great place for us to start. And I remember just having those services, and I just remember thinking to myself, Lord, you're doing something really special here, and I'm so thankful for the way you've provided for us. And so that was a really exciting time, and it was just it was good reassurance for me, just from the Lord, that God was really with us, and He was taking care of us, that He was really the one who's in charge of all things, and it was a good thing for me to remember at that time.
All right, so here we are at the corner of East 6th and Des Moines Street at our first location, first building for the downtown church. This is as you can see, it's now a restaurant called Alba, but this building was first graciously just really given to us to be used by John Bergeson at Iowa State Bank. And it's a building that actually fit us quite well when we first started. It's not too big, not too small, but it held us just at the right amount it was the right space, the right size for the right amount of people that we had. And so it actually was a great fit for us, and really got us going, kind of got us started, and allowing us to really plant the church and to grow into the space, and to use it in a way that God, I think, really helped advance God's kingdom.
I don't know if this is right or not, but after Faith Walkers or something, I just remember sewing curtains and like getting things ready right like the day of the first service. I remember doing that.
It's very different. It was, drop ceilings. It wasn't a really big room. It was hard to see. The screen was kind of tight. It was. We didn't have a lot of people going at the time, but it felt very tight. The refreshments were in like a garage type area. I remember at the first location there was one service where it was only Saturday night, and there was someone that just passed out, and I think it was because it was just so hot and stuffy in there, and maybe what Dan said, I don't know, but it was not an ideal spot for a big group and for people to see what was going on. The stage was, you couldn't see the stage real well, you couldn't see the screen real well. So, but it was a great place to make our start.
This is where our second location was at. We were in this building for about 3 or 4 months, and I remember one day sitting at the church and reading the newspaper, and I read about how the building that we were in was going to be destroyed, that Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield was going to destroy our building to build their new facility. And so it was kind of funny just reading in the newspaper how we were getting kicked out of a building, and in my mind I thought, oh no, Lord, I don't know where we're going to go now, but just judging from past experience, God's always been faithful, and He's provided a place for us to meet. But we really loved being at this facility. I remember meeting there and finding out a little bit about the building, and it was pretty unique. It was a unique building, and it had a lot of different things about it that I think were pretty cool. I remember learning a little bit about the history of the building, and we met on the first floor, but we could walk up to the second floor from time to time. And I remember learning that on the second floor, that was Slipknot's lair. That's where they would practice, and that's where they would have private shows and parties. And so it was kind of funny just walking around up on that second floor, just thinking about what had taken place up on that second floor. And at that location, the Lord did some pretty great things. I remember just being in a great location really helped us out a lot. There was so much drive-by traffic, and people would walk in. I remember before the services, people would get there early and pray, and then they would go out and invite people to church that were just walking by, or hand out gospel tracts or share the gospel with them. And I remember that was one facility that we had to do a lot of work to. We ended up tearing out so much stuff and painting and redoing so many different projects at that building.
It was almost like it was like going to church in the comfort of your own home with all your cousins of the same age as you.
We're here at our third location, 621 Des Moines Street, and this was a very unique building with some very unique challenges. I remember being at a place where we were pretty desperate. We found out that the location that we were at on Grand, we were no longer going to be able to meet there, and so we were looking for just about anything. And this is an old dairy farm. Yeah, it has a very unique feel to it, which I think really worked in our advantage. But I remember thinking to myself when we got in here, I remember thinking, I don't know how this is going to work. There was no air conditioning in the building, and so each summer it was about 120 degrees. In August when we were having our services, that was one unique challenge. Another challenge was that there were bands, like heavy metal bands, that practiced right underneath our floor. And so oftentimes during our services or different events, we would get a dose of Dead Horse Trauma, a heavy metal band here in Des Moines. And I remember thinking, oh man, Lord, I don't know what's going on here. But it seemed like people just kind of adjusted to it. It was a little bit annoying, but sometimes I actually think it worked in our favor because it was such a unique experience. In the middle of a message, you would hear someone screaming their lungs out. And oftentimes I remember during the middle of a service, there would be a unique smell that would come up from the floor. And people would say, what is that smell? And everyone knew what it was, but we were at church, so no one thought it was possible. But the bands underneath were smoking pot, and so there was a very distinct pot smell that would come up during the middle of our services.
But you walk in, and it's just it's kind of like they were kind of ushering, kind of like cattle, and there's like small doors, and you kind of walk in, it's just dark, wood floors. It's just like, am I in a church or a barn, or what is going on here? And it's just like, just young people. It's just like, this is weird. This is not like Pew Sunday morning, 10 a.m. service. This is just different.
The first location I went to was on the Des Moines Street location, and I remember it being really dark and dingy, and I remember not being able to wear heels because the floors were like it was a barn pretty much, so your heels would get caught in between there, and that was very uncomfortable. So, and I remember at the Des Moines Street location as well, having the barbecues on the roof for Epicenter, and how that was really fun and really ridiculously hot as well. That building was very hot, but it was a very good bonding experience.
But everyone knew each other's name, and not only that, afterward, everyone hung out together, and we even fit in the same house. So it's kind of crazy that we could all hang out in the same house afterward.
All right, we're at our fourth location here, 504 East Locust, and this location was actually a pretty awesome spot, pretty awesome place for us to meet as a church here. There's a lot of people walk by the building every day, so we had a lot of visitors, a lot of people coming in and checking us out. You could stand in the back, check out the service, leave if they wanted to and whatnot. So it worked really well, and just kind of getting our name even out into the public a little bit more, and people knowing who we are and where we are at, right in the main Dragon East Village. So this building had a ton of character. It was a great place for us to meet. It was a place that God, I think, we grew tremendously in this building, and God really blessed all the things that were really seemed to be going on as we were down in this area, and as He just continued to lead us and bless us as a church. I remember that a lot of the things that were really great about this building, just the setup of the place and the environment of it, and just kind of the uniqueness of the whole structure. But one of the things that was always so interesting is our nursery situation. And once again, in this building, we didn't have a very adequate nursery situation. Our children were in the basement in an area that was great when it was in the summertime because it was nice and cool, but when it was in the wintertime, you could hang meat in the room. So it was always kind of funny trying to deal with the whole nursery situation, which we did here as well. And we made things work out, and we always saw God just, people had great attitudes, and God really just helped us figure out what would be the best solution to the problem. So again, we loved this building and enjoyed it quite a bit and had a great experience here, and really God used it, I think, this spot just and blessed us in tremendous ways.
And I would really recommend it for people who are searching for God and have led a very sinful life and just want to come here and just find help.
Really, I don't think much has changed when it comes to the relationships and just the love that people have for people who come through the doors.
I mean, it's been really encouraging to see. It's really cool to see God move and just people coming around. It seems like there are a lot of people who are coming into a new relationship with Christ or really committing with this body of believers, and it's just cool. It seems really to be thriving, and it's cool to see God work actively in people's lives.
The first night I came to the church, I kind of had this plan that I was just going to walk in, kind of
lay low. Nobody really noticed me, sneak right back out. And I walked in, the first thing I noticed was everybody standing in the back still talking, and realized that probably wasn't just going to slide right in and slide right back out.
I just feel like I've met my best friends at the downtown church. I've just learned a lot, grown in my relationship with the Lord. There have been ups and downs in my own life, ups and downs in the church. I remember painting all of the time at every location. I just remember painting everything.
I'd always been around friends who, you pick at each other, you make fun of each other, and people didn't do that. And just over time, I realized it was because people really loved Christ, and I was just really changed by the love that people showed me. And as I started to seek the Lord, it just became real to me to serve the Lord.
People at the downtown church, before I was ever the downtown church, they loved me. They genuinely loved me and cared about me. They told me the truth about my life, and they talked about heaven and they talked about hell, and it was something that I hadn't ever heard young people talk about and challenge me with what I believed.
I just really love this church. I'm passionate about the body of Christ. I'm passionate about the people that are in it. It has been a life changer for me. One of the best decisions I've ever made.
Seeking shelter from the storms is the purpose worth